why we want to use the science of reading in our classrooms is to give our students the best advantage possible to be successful readers. And as caring educators, that's what we want. The research really gives us that clear information that when we do X, we get Y, that we can know those best practices to implement to make sure that all of our students are successful readers. When we implement the science of reading in the classroom, there's clear advantages. One of the first ones is that students are more accurate and fluent at the word reading level, which is going to be critical for those stages of fluency, because that's so dependent upon that automatic decoding of those words. We're going to see both of those aspects, that accurate and more fluent word reading, and then fluency transferring into connected text. Jennifer Buckingham did an article in the first issue of the Reading League Journal called 6 Reasons to Use the Science of Reading in Schools. She identified that word reading as the first one and fluency as the second advantage. And additional advantages she identified was increase in vocabulary, adept reading comprehension, more reading for students, just an increase in the volume of reading and enjoyment for students in reading. And the last one is that fewer students need intervention. Those are all really powerful reasons as to why we want to implement the science of reading in our classroom, to see those benefits for all of our students. So when we think about that, why don't we? Why don't we just put it in our classrooms? And really that comes from a couple of key reasons as to why we don't. A lot of times as educators, just to start with, as educators, we care about what we're doing and we do the best we can with the knowledge that we have at the time. So sometimes when information and science comes in and says, in an abrupt way, you've been doing this wrong, we're all going to get pretty resistant and not want to change, because it would actually just destroy us to think that maybe what we've been doing wasn't the best thing for our students. So really, for us to be willing to take and apply the science of reading is to be open to recognizing couple of key things. First, we've done the best that we can with the knowledge that we had at the time. I think about my own journey with that, and I wish I could go back and do some things differently, but I do know that I cared about my students and I did the best that I could at the time. But for me to continue to do what's best for my students, it's about being open to what evidence is showing, and being flexible enough to change. And part of my ability to be flexible to change is not personalizing that information, to not think that I'm a bad teacher. That maybe I was using strategies that weren't as effective as the time as they are now, is what we know is most effective now. But that means that I can pivot and change and bring in those effective strategies based on the science of reading for all my students to have that advantage. That is why we want to make sure that we are open and adapting and applying the science of reading in our classrooms.